Remains a remarkable sight, a desolate Times Square in an increasingly desolate city of New York. Well, good evening to you once again. Day 1161 of the Trump administration, 223 days until our presidential election. And this marks 2 weeks, 14 days since the World Health Organization declared the coronavirus a global pandemic. And we have now a suggested name for this thing we're all living under, especially the 170 million, give or take, of us who are under some form of house arrest. People have floated out the term, the Great Adaptation. And we should all hope that's all it is, by the way, and not a reformation of our country or our lives long term or the U.S. economy. The Washington Post put up some drones and sent out some cameras today to record just how desolate it is out there in the cities and municipalities that have shut down and chased the people inside. It's historic. It has changed our country. It's taken people from us, and sadly, it will take more. And it's been ravaging different countries on its way here. 467,000 confirmed cases around the world now. The number of dead in Spain has now surpassed the death toll in China. As Great Britain remains in limited lockdown, we learned today Prince Charles has the virus. Mild symptoms. He's self-isolating. In this country, our president used today's White House briefing to accuse journalists sitting before him of writing fake news. He went after our allies. He relitigated his case against NATO. He still says he wants to get people out and about starting Easter Sunday or before, as he added today. Even though such decisions would be made by governors and mayors and not made by him, he's still talking about being able to clear large sections of the country to go out and about again. Many smart professionals fear that is a suicide mission, no matter that the president thinks packed churches on Easter Sunday would be a beautiful thing. In the real world, our country has now passed 65,000 cases, up roughly 10,000 since we last spoke here. The number of dead Americans is inching toward 1,000. Washington Post says this was the deadliest 24 hours thus far. For contrast, here's a little bit of that briefing at the White House.
So important. Social distancing, such an important phrase. And we do it right now. The more lives we can save and the sooner we can eventually get people back to work. As we fight to protect American lives, we're also protecting American livelihoods. We want to get everybody back working. Together, this $2.2 trillion legislative package is bigger than anything, I believe, ever passed in Congress. It's hard not to be happy with the job we're doing. I'm not going to do anything rash or hastily. I don't do that. By Easter, we'll have a recommendation, and maybe before Easter, and at the end of the 15th day, or even during the 15th day, I think we'll have some kind of a recommendation. But our country wants to get back to work. The longer we stay out, the harder it is to bring this incredible. We were having the most successful years that we've ever had in the history of our country.
And of course, experts have pointed out this virus does not report to any calendar. At the Pentagon, the Surgeon General for the Joint Chiefs of Staff sounded much more cautious about this Easter deadline.
I just got an update on modeling factors from a 3-week perspective based on the planning factors that we have. We think that we're going to continue to see this, no surprise, continue to grow.
We also learned that this may just be the first round in the battle with this virus. Here is what Dr. Tony Fauci said during today's White House briefing. Notably, this was after the president had exited the room.
What we're starting to see now in the Southern Hemisphere, in Southern Africa, and in the Southern Hemisphere countries is that we're having cases that are appearing as they go into their winter season. And if, in fact, they have a substantial outbreak, it will be inevitable that we need to be prepared that we'll get a cycle around. It totally emphasizes the need to do what we're doing in developing a vaccine, testing it quickly, and trying to get it ready so they will have a vaccine available for that next cycle.
And by the way, NBC News Count has 18 states and now the District of Columbia, now with some form or fashion of restrictions on movement or large gatherings. And today it was clear some local officials are in no hurry to roll those back.
This thing is not going to even peak, we don't think, until May 1. So I don't want to mislead anybody. This is not going to occur overnight.
If we see gatherings, we will shut them down, period. This is not just another day. And no day will be just another day until we're on the other side of this virus.
And we've been hearing a lot from the president lately about the swift improvement in coronavirus testing in our country compared to, say, South Korea, where they were fast to deploy testing, unlike us. Well, today, the president was once again boasting about the testing efforts.
I'm going to say it again. We tested far more than anybody else. We did in 8 days more than South Korea did in 8 weeks. That's a big number.
Remember, we lost about 8 weeks in this fight by not testing, and both USA Today and NPR are debunking the president's last claim there. Our population is 6 times that of South Korea. They tested a much larger proportion of their population. There was also this from our president late this afternoon, quote, "The lamestream media is the dominant force in trying to keep our country closed as long as possible in the hope that it will be detrimental to my election success." As you might imagine, he was asked about that at today's briefing. Here's how he responded.
The media would like to see me do poorly in the election. I think there are certain people that would like it not to open so quickly. I think there are certain people that would like it to do financially poorly because they think that would be very good as far as defeating me at the polls. And I don't know if that's so, but I do think it's so that there are people in your profession that would like that to happen. I think it's very clear they would love to see me for whatever reason, because we've done one hell of a job. Nobody's done the job that we've done.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.